You've made it to another episode of the Pipe Dream Podcast. This is a show that reveals the real and raw of tradesman stories. We get the truth from those who support the people who do the work. We also take a deep dive with resilience experts and those who do the heavy lifting supporting the labor force. Listen for today's tale from the trench.
Hello, my brothers. This is Nick Gemmel, the Awakened Tradesman. And the topic of today's episode is Iron Mindset, a discussion with Chris Duffin. Sit back and relax and listen to today's tale from the trench. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Good, man. Good. It's, I've been following you for a long time, and I can't tell you how cool it is that you agreed to be on the show. I know how valuable your time is, and it's just an amazingly crazy time right now, and I can't say that enough. But thank you for agreeing to be on the show and giving us some of your time.
Well, it's specifically what you're trying to do that, normally it sounds kind of stupid, but I'm only doing like a very high, podcast. I don't want to down talk yours, so don't take that the wrong way. But, as soon as you sent me the information about what you're doing and who you're trying to reach and the message that you're sharing, I'm like, I would love to be on your podcast. Everything as far as the amount, size and whatever goes out the window. Let's talk and see where we can go.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate it. And only your name will help build that. That foundation, right? So the more people that see this and the more people that listen, we can help, right? So I appreciate you seeing the value in that for sure. And where I'd like to see is some people are thinking, why is this relevant? Like, you're a father, husband, business owner, and one of the strongest men on the planet. And how is that relevant to us, living in the oil field lifestyle and being a tradesman? Like, how is all that relevant? But if people, I'll let you get into that a little bit after listening to your book in the Eagle and the Dragon. Like, your story is just unbelievable, and the mindset that's come out of all of that adversity is and a different life. Yeah, I like how you describe it as a different life. You don't describe it any other way. And
it's not bad. It's not not, a lot of people want to say, traumatic or this or that, but it's just different. It's a different set of experiences than most people are used to living today. So
exactly. And if you could let our listeners know a little bit more about you, like your past and how you came to be one of the strongest men on the planet and all your other business ventures, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So I grew up kind of in Northern California, maybe Southern Oregon area. And it was, late 70s through the 80s. And we lived homeless, as in like in a tent in the woods. I knew how to, forage for different types of mushrooms. What would kill you, what wouldn't. We would, we'd kill animals regularly. Obviously, pheasants and rabbits were easy. You could just keep going to the same area every day and a new bunny would pop out of the hole. But poaching deer, that sort of thing, obviously I don't promote that, but, if you've got, a family of 6 living on less than $5,000 a year, you don't have ways to make ends meet. So this isn't the poor that we know today, or that we see a lot of times where people have their gaming centers and their smartphones and their nice clothes. We had nothing. Like I was running around the woods with no shoes on. I still run around as an adult with no shoes on. So some things never change, but I'd have the same set of shoes for years that I'd gotten used to begin with, till my toes were like sticking out the side. And at school, people would make fun of me because my clothes were dirty. They were holes in them, and not stylish holes. And so it was a different lifestyle. So in the mountains, my parents were trying to make ends meet. My mom just didn't want to have a part of the society as a whole. She still doesn't. She still lives out in remote. She's out in the desert doing her own thing now. But she made a choice. I mean, she was a star athlete and a star student. Had scholarships to go to school to be a chemical engineer. My father was a member of Mensa. They were smart, well-read people, and it was it's I guess that time coming out of the '60s into the '70s, and that was the choice. Was to figure out how to make ends meet and be able to live a life outside of the norm, and they did that. And in the book, a lot of people could probably say some negative things about some of the parenting. I learned. I think the book opens with me with a rattlesnake in my hand at 6 years old, because I was being taught how to capture and handle and kill live rattlesnakes. Well, that's because it was needed. I mean, at that time, we had beams strapped up into the trees for our beds, because this is Northern California. There was rattlesnake dens all around. We were actually killing them and saving the skins to prep to sell, and then eating the meat because, well, it's food. But just a different upbringing. So you learn a lot about, like in that instance, I talk about learning about fear, and that it's a powerful driver, and you can't let it overrun you. If you do, you're going to get bitten. You can't be cocky. You can't be fearless. You must respect. But it is a powerful driver. And so I walked through a lot of these lessons that I learned in this experience that made me who I am today. And I have my parents to credit for that too, despite the things that didn't go well. My mom stuck to what she believed in, and she made hard choices and lived a life that was not easy. It's never been easy, and taught me a lot about grit and determination and just being your own person, regardless of what everyone around you says or believes. And so there was time we spent, the state came and took us in the mountains, took me, my brother, my 3 sisters, and put us in foster care. That was not a great experience. It's even though I wrote about it, it's still a little tough to talk about. But the sheriff that took us in, and many of the police officers and the foster parents were all arrested and thrown into prison because they were preying on people in a remote area for human trafficking. And anyway, side note, he got out 20 years later and tracked my mom in Southern Oregon. And
that's part of the book when it came around. It was quite the turn of events. For sure.
Yeah. So he was a serial killer too. Anyway,
right?
I've seen some crazy stuff in my life. Drug running, lots of drug abuse around me, just in the environment that I dealt with, and having to deal with that. Dealing with murderers, serial killers, human trafficking, all sorts of stuff. And I ended up in high school. We had a fairly stable. My stepfather got a disability settlement, and because he had a broken arm for like 15 years and kept working because he had to, digging swimming pools, cutting firewood, growing weed, all the things that, busting his ass to take care of the family, despite having a broken arm that was just wearing apart. And so we got a mobile home. And it didn't have doors. It didn't have, it had running water and it had electricity. We had to build some countertops out of plywood and things to have a kitchen. But it was a stable place for my high school. And I ended up excelling in sports and academics. Got a full ride scholarship, academic scholarship to go to college, which I did. And I quit, communicating with my parents as much or very little during that time, just trying to focus on what I needed to do. And I'd have to send money home every time I'd, call or come home. And so I didn't have a lot of communication for a couple of years, and things got really bad at home, a lot worse when I wasn't around. I'm not sure. Apparently, I had some sort of stabilizing force. I'm not sure how at that age, but when I left, things got bad, and I ended up having to take custody of my three siblings. My mom had a mental breakdown, ended up out in Montana, and my stepfather was on a continual mental decline and was barely able to take care of himself. And so my three sisters were kind of fending for themselves, and I ended up taking custody of them one at a time and raising all of them through their teenage years while I finished my engineering degrees, my MBA, and I worked the whole time too, full time, because I had no fallback plan. So I started, being a pizza cook for a couple of years, and then I got into the mill, worked at the mill, and started doing production management, a mixture of stuff there, and then just continued with my career, and I ended up in that field for a long time, and that continued. I've worked my whole life. Like, when we were in the mountains, we were mining, and I was hauling rocks up the side of the mountain every day, backpack, barely, crawling up the sides. We were cutting wood. I was splitting and stacking. And so I've known labor my entire life. And it was interesting getting into the professional environment because that's who I continued to work with. Right. So at that point now it's, I'm running, automotive manufacturing or aerospace manufacturing companies. I'm working with skilled machinists and electricians and everybody in that manner. And it continued to raise my respect for tradesmen. And I've been active talking about this for 15, 20 years, probably. Mm-hmm. In the earlier in my career, I'd just go into like my wife's school and talk to kids and talk about trades and because at the end of the day, like people go home and they've done something and they, you've had an impact, like you've accomplished something, and you have to be smart and you have to work and you have to it's not like I've had so many like 6-figure employees for me that they may not even have high school degrees, but they're smart people. And you get a lot of people that kind of come and go because it's just a frustration of mine. That's why I've talked to colleges, I talked to high schools, I talked to through the years, is just the frustration I have. And I'm kind of going on a rant, but I can't help myself because I'm passionate about this. Yeah. Is that, in school, they try to take, the smart people and go, oh, you don't want to get your hands dirty. Let's go over here and get this blue collar, job. And, they start and they bias everybody towards certain curriculum, which at the end, then they go out and get a degree and they can't do anything with it. And they end up like working at Starbucks for 20, 30 hours a week at just above minimum wage. Right. Mm-hmm. And then they take everybody that maybe is, has some challenges or struggle, and they go, oh, you need to go this direction. And so we end up with, in the trade field, like the people that I've hired and everybody I work with, it's really hard to find like good people. But when you do, they excel, and you can accomplish so much because it's not like they want you to think that it's a mindless job. It's not. You actually, you got to have skills. You got to do math. You got to this is it's challenging. You gotta use your brain. You gotta be smart. You gotta be safe. You gotta be and so it's just a frustration that I think we're sending the wrong people the wrong directions. And what's one of the fastest ways to getting your own business too? Yep. Being a tradesman. Started as an electrician. Now I've got I own my own electrician company. I own my own plumbing company. I own and so we see people that in those fields that do really well, and that's who I've always hired, and that's why I've continued to stay working in this environment. Anyway, so that's been my experience for since the late 90s. I've been doing this work, and for me, it's kind of frustrating, being sometimes in middle, upper management. I ended up progressing to where I was at the executive level because, you're very smart. Your audience would get it that. I can actually get out there and do the stuff, and I get it. I can run a machine, I can build things, I can fabricate, I can do it. And it's not often you actually get somebody in some of those leadership positions that one is perfectly fine stepping in with you, has the capability and gets it. And so that combined with some of the leadership and other things I've done really well in my career. And so I progressed really fast. So the last 10 years of my career, I was working as an executive where they hired me to come in and, fix a company and turn it around. And guess what? It involved coming in and doing really stupid things like treating people well and with respect and not micromanaging them and just giving them the platform to do their job and providing some direction. Like mind-blowing shit, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden things like change. And,
asking for their opinion, probably. Right?
Exactly. Just like silly things. So anyway, by being a basic good person, I did good in that career. And, the piece that I enjoyed from that was the leadership side of it, is the coaching and mentoring and getting people to be able to realize they can accomplish a lot more than they believe, which is something that I really, really believe in. And so that's the cornerstone of like what value I got out of it, why I stuck with it. But at some point I realized I could do a lot more in the world. And so 5 years ago, I walked away from that career, which was a little scary because, my family had, was used to a certain, like I did well. And I decided to launch my own businesses, and well, now I'm basically doing the same thing again. I've got an incredible staff, and we're manufacturing some of the best strength training equipment in the world, and we work with all the best athletes in the world. Mm-hmm. And I that's no joke when I say that. We work in every professional sport in North America. We work with 600 plus colleges. That includes all the big D1 schools that not super big in the hockey side, but we've got several big name NHL players and a few teams that under our belt. Somebody that won the Stanley Cup too, and we work with 75% of Major League Baseball teams. Would have been 90% this year if the COVID thing hadn't happened. All big name stars, like The Rock, Thor, LeBron. Next month, I'm going down with Lane Johnson of the NFL and doing some motivational speaking for the NFL offensive linemen and doing some training with them. And so, yeah, I'm not exaggerating when I say we've had a big impact in 5 years, and we work with basically everybody.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, just that mindset of from where you came from. And again, not good or bad. It was just different. And now you're working with some of the best in the world because you've decided to make that choice. And I was going to talk about that later, but it's totally relevant. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I definitely want to make sure that we spend some time talking about, prioritization in life and goal setting and stuff like that, because that's like the cornerstone of everything. So, anyway.
For sure. And it tied right into the values, right? Like you talk a lot in the book of the values. You don't get into how you defined your values, like what the steps were, but in our work, and that goes to how it was relevant to why I wanted you on the show, was because that's a lot of the work that we do. We call it the island. You have to find where you want to go with your island. Okay. And now based on your values, now you can make those choices, how you want to react and act during the day, and the things that you want to do that light you on fire. And once you start doing that, it doesn't seem like work anymore, right? Like you're just,
you know why you're doing the things that you're doing.
Yeah. And you found that where I totally went down a pit and ended up into a pit and lost my wife and everything by not dealing with that. Like why does training, like I was training for my second powerlifting meet, and I was doing very well in that training, but my whole life was falling around behind me. And I had no idea what was going on. And until it was, okay, we're done. Right. And even after that, I didn't. So it was the training that lit me on fire. It's one of my values, I found, but it was the rest of my life I wasn't happy with. And why was that? But now being aligned with my values. So that's what I'd like to talk a little bit about you, is how you came to that. How did you come to that realization that values were important to you, and and how did you figure that out?
So it's not like there was an epiphany one day. This is a long process of learning leadership, working with people at all different levels. So coaching, high level athletes to a lot of coaching in the business world, executive coaching, I've been doing for a long time. And finally, it was just developing this process. And so the process is all about, separating. It is like values. That's number one. This is where you have to start. And it's a hard thing to define. So I want to spend some time with this. Mm-hmm. But in this world we live in, I think I use these exact words in the book. It's a shallow, curated form of individualism that's sold to us. You want this car, you want this house to show that you're blah, blah, blah. You want that you're successful, whatever it is, here's the clothes that you need to buy. Here's this so that you can show that you're different by being exactly like everybody else. And that can be fine. You could want those things. And the process is diving deeper and peeling back those layers of why do I want these things? And manufacturing a long time, I pull from a lot of different philosophies to come up with this, but I use the 5 whys methodology for, figuring out root cause analysis. And so it's really, doing that same thing. It's not like sitting down with a Sunday for a couple beers and going, I'm going to figure out my values. This is a process. It's a continual process. I've got 7 main core values for me. And it's just keep asking yourself, okay, if it's a nice house, that's what I want. Okay. Why? And just keep asking yourself till you get an answer.
Yep.
And then once you have that answer, start the process again. And when you get that answer, walk through the process again. And this isn't something that happens in a few hours. You might spend a few months really trying to working through every one of these. Okay. And I challenge you to go through the process 5 times, to keep peeling back the layers of the onion until you can get to that root. And the house I use is a really common example, because a house can mean a lot of things. A house can mean family. A house can mean stability. A house can mean success. A house can, there's so many things here, right? So if we don't understand why, and we just pick, here's this bucket list of things that I hate this. I need to have 50 things to accomplish. This is my bucket. No, it's going to be a few core things in your life, few core tenets that you're going to want. And they're things that you want to live by. They're not actually things. So for example, I'll list some of mine, right? One of mine is stability, okay? And some of these work against each other. But obviously, stability is really important for me, given the chaos that I've had in my life, is to be able to know that no matter what, I'll be able to care for and provide for my family. But at the same time, I want massive challenge. I want to put myself on the edge, and I need to have challenge in my life at all times. I want to and from that, I want to have accomplishment. I want to succeed. Okay. So to push those, it kind of puts stability in question at times, hey, I'm going to quit this well-paying job and go chase being an entrepreneur. Okay. I had to put some things in place to do all that. Right. And this one is a little bit egotistical, but they are what they are. Recognition. I want to be recognized for the things that I've done, the work that I've done to help people, I straight up, I like to be recognized for those things that I've accomplished, right? Having a creative outlet is huge for me. So I build and fabricate, vehicles from scratch. I do unique engineering design. But in my prior career, I didn't really have that huge creative outlet, and that was having a huge impact on me. So it was only when I would be able to take on a project, but because family security, some of those things took a higher priority, I might sit and not work on some of my projects for years at a time.
Yeah, and you even said in the book where you when you were restructuring, when you were able to restructure a company, you were on fire, like you had something to do. But then when it was just maintenance, and
when it was maintenance, I moved. I was like stabbing myself in the eye. Right. I did have my focus with the being able to have an impact on other people, that leadership aspect, that being able to motivate and inspire people to accomplish more. That's a big driver for me. That's a value. I don't know that I have a word for that one, but it's a concept, right? And I had that, but that was it. And a lot of that moves at much slower pace when you're not in this, like, hey, you know, everybody might lose their job type thing, and we got to fix this, like, type environment for those few years. So when it reached the stability point, man, I'd just be sitting like, I want to job was easy. Challenge went away, right? Creativity went away. Like, all these things happen. So I'll get back to the house in a minute, but here's where it becomes important is realizing, because when people pick something, so I'm going to pick on you. Mm-hmm. Training is a value. Mm-hmm. Training's not a value yet. You need to dig deeper. Okay. All right. You're close, but, and maybe if you rephrase it, I could see it. But like if somebody says powerlifting is my value. Yeah. Powerlifting can be taken from you at any time. Now, what are you going to do? Oh. So this is something with professional athletes, like everything is wrapped around their career. And then when it gets taken away, the retirement, injury, whatever, what happens? Yeah. Depression, suicide, getting fat, like all sorts of things. You'll see it, not all the time, but it's pretty common, right? To see these things happen because they can't find it. They don't know who they are anymore.
Yep, 100%. And because mine was adventure, inclusion, teaching, and connection. And connection and accomplishment is in there as well. Yep. Is one of the, so yeah, that's why training, it takes a few of those values and it puts it inside, right?
Yeah. So now once you've got those true values, like from continual learning, that's another one for me, right? Once you have that, you could realize, oh, well, my goal is to be an NFL star. Well, not everybody is cut out to be that. Okay. And so you may realize I can't do that. But if I know why I wanted to be that NFL star, I could realize there's a lot of other things, avenues that I could go to accomplish the same, to live the same life, to live the same values are something that you can live. Right. And so you can understand different ways. So let's get back to the house. Let's say your house is stability. Okay. So I know, and you don't know this, all you know is I want a big fancy house, right? And a big fancy car out front, because why? I don't know. I haven't really thought about it, but that's what just a burning desire. I must have it. Right. So let's say it's stability. Okay. Well, if you don't understand that, you might get over leverage yourself to accomplish those things. And now all you've done is actually done the opposite of value. Let's say it's family. Okay. And you work so much that you're never there or never present for your family, but you're able to buy them nice things and have this great place. And then you lose your family because of it. Right. This is the danger of not understanding why the underlying reasons of why the things that you want. So you have to start with values. Once you start with values, now you can start attaching goals that will help you live a life to execute, living those values. So for me, like a lot of people, I just quit, I quit professional powerlifting like 5 years ago when I started the business. It was like, oh, you can't do that. Well, I found a different thing. I did some exhibition lifting and allowed me to live it even more. And now my big goal was to be the only person or the first person. I am the only, but to squat 1,000 pounds for reps and deadlift 1,000 pounds for reps. I've done both for a triple. And well, you could argue a double on the deadlift because I didn't quite lock out the third one, but it doesn't matter. Nobody's done it.
Still reps. Still reps.
Nobody's done reps with either of those, both. And I said, when I'm done that, I'm done exhibition lifting. I'm done lifting heavy. My training focus is going to be on health and longevity and things that are going to support the family aspect of my values. It's like, well, what? Oh, you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to go on to the next thing and next thing. I'm like, no, because I know why I did those things.
Mm-hmm.
I did them for the challenge, the accomplishment, the recognition, right? Well, I've got a whole lot of that to do with my business and other things that I'm working on that are more than, and I've been in the last year of training for the 1,000 squat. I was more excited about getting done with it so I could get on to this next set of stuff. But if you don't understand that, that's why you see people struggle to like go there.
Yeah.
That was one way. This is the good verbiage. That was a way for me to realize those values. It was one way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And I was going to say, like, it's not only impressive that, more than most people, than anybody might do in the history of people, what you just did, which is so freaking cool. But a lot of us in the oil industry and it's not even just that, it's just because that's what I know. But a lot of men define themselves by what they do, right? So they picked a career or they pick a job and they say, and most of us fell into it. And now we define our lives based on something that we didn't even really want in the first place. And now you see dudes, right? Because I know like the addiction part of your life, right? And all of that, right? And a lot of it had to do with boredom you discussed in the book, right? And, there's other things, right? But boredom was a lot of it does. But if you aren't aligned with your values and you define yourself by something that's not even you, now when you come home, let's say you've been gone working for a couple weeks or a couple months, like a lot of us do, and we come home and you're defining yourself what you just did there, but now you're expected to be a full-time father, full-time husband, and you're used to running, $1 million jobs, multi-million-dollar jobs, or just looking after a crew, or just being somebody that's working there in the trades, or just slinging skids on the pipeline. You're defined yourself by that, and now you come home and you just want to sedate.
You're like, who am I? I'm not doing my thing. Yeah.
So now you're just waiting for the next phone call to go do your thing again. And so you're just being, I like to say, just being while you're at home. Meanwhile, your kids are being neglected, like not just left in the corner, but you're not there the way you should.
You're not present.
Yeah.
And even, and I see this and I speak to it a lot with other like the person that is so work focused and they go home every day and then just zone out. They're waiting for the weekend and they're not there. They're not there. It's sad, and I understand where it comes from, but it takes a lot of work to really do this self work, and it takes years, honestly, and it's a continual process. It's a continual process. There's no like, I've done it. Like I said, I've got 7, but you're constantly evaluating, how is your life aligned with those things? Is it still accurate? But man, you can just put your life on jet fuel once you realize the way that you want to live.
Yep. I've felt more connection with my kids in the past year since I started working this way and coming back from rehab, not for drugs or alcohol, but just to like figure shit out. Like, why am I not happy? And that was just the catalyst that started that fuel of the self-development. Okay, let's figure this out. And now working this way in the Men of Iron is the outlet I found. And it's based off of a lot of different things, but Garrett J. White and the Warriors Way down in California. Not sure if you're familiar, but it's just a lot of this. It's just a lot of, hey, what are your values? What is your mission? And then what are the things that light you on fire? And now let's make targets. We call them targets. So like set your 90-day targets. And now let's create weekly goals to make you feel like you're moving ahead, right? So you can be sitting in a camp room, or you can be sitting in a hotel room for weeks, right? But it's that time that you're away, make it make sense to you. And if it doesn't, well, then you have to do some deep searching. How can you make that better? Because life goes by like that. Like once I woke up, like after rehab and stuff, I was like, 10 years have just passed and I'm not any farther ahead. And it's, and that was, the time that my kids needed me the most. And knowing the most, like your parents were always there, but there was a lot of chaos, right? And it's very important. So you've recognized that, and kudos, man, for pulling out of that for your kids. Like, yeah, you created some wicked stuff, and now you get to be aligned with yourself and on fire, and be around your kids a lot more, and be present.
I've got a Instagram video or YouTube video on life and goal setting, and so I actually walk through the process. Once you have the values, is you just put them up there on the side, so you've got the reflection of, okay, here's the values, and then right across the top you put, these are the compartments, like family, financial, whatever it is, right? And then you start, now within that you take a little sticky note and you write down what your goals are to help you realize these values over here. It's not a grid chart, so it's just straight down. You just have the reflection of the values over here, and you lay out, what is my plan for the year based on this to live these things? Mm-hmm. And here's the categories of goals that I'm going to do. And then here's the actual goals. And then you go through, and mark the ones that I want done in the next 90 days. Okay. Mm-hmm. And you have some time bound on those, but that's how you actually put it together. And that part, you just, you might get to a point where you can just do that in your head. That just depends on it. Some people love things on paper. Some people love things on Excel, or whatever works best for you. But I think the first time you do it, walking through it on paper is definitely the way to go. But you need to spend that time understanding your values first, right? Oh,
yeah. A lot of people skip over that, and then we reach, and then we get to the point where you can pick things out of thin air, and it still doesn't make sense to you, and you're no farther ahead. You're just doing
it. Just throwing random goals on paper, right? And so this gets you like a nice actionable approach of like, this is what I want to do this year to make change and see it change for year over year. And also what's right in front of me right now. And then I call it a reverse prioritization process. So everything that doesn't align with this, cut out of your life. So this goes back to some other like really basic manufacturing philosophy around 5S, which I don't know if you use in the oil field or not, but the first step is just basically removing everything from a work area that you don't use. Like you move everything to begin with, and then you pull back the things that you must have, right? So it's like, quit doing everything, okay? And then you'll find really quick, what are the things that I have to do? So step one is just quit doing shit. Because there's a lot of things that you'll find in your life that you just do because it's habit, or you think that you have to do, or whatever it is. Don't do it. And you'll find out, do I need to do it? Okay. All right. Now, if I need to do it, can I automate it? Can I create some process that just takes care of this for me on a regular basis? A simple example, bill pay, right? Instead of manually cutting checks or whatever every month or going into your accounts. There's a lot of different, I'm just throwing something so people understand what I talk, that's only going to save you like 5 minutes, but it's a nice, easy example. Mm-hmm. And then the next one beyond that is, how can if I can't do that and it's not fitting into the scope of the priorities in my life, how do I delegate it or outsource it, right? Because it's taking away from the things that I want. It's taking away from the time with my family. It's not adding to, the stability. I'm like going further in credit card debt or whatever it is. Like, figure this shit out and remove those things.
Yeah, and there's a lot to do.
Don't do it.
Yeah,
automate it. or outsource it.
Yeah. And the ego, you have to let the ego out the door for that one. A lot of us can't. So delegation, right? Like I found that a lot. Like, yeah, let the ego at the door. But I love it.
Yep. I've learned that a long time ago. I wanted to micromanage everything. I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm like, I feel I know the best way. And, whoever's working for me or the team under me is like, no, we want to go this direction. And I'm like, if you're bought in and believe it, you'll make it happen. Even though I'm pretty confident I've been through this before, there's a better way. But if I make you do it, it's going to take a whole lot of drain on my resources versus it's going to get done in accomplishment if you believe it. If they believe it, you're going to make it happen and they own it. Yeah, go for it. Run it. But you some people can't let go of that. So.
No. Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. No, it's, and how I like to say it is, because it took me a few mentors or a few people to listen to before it actually clicked. And it's do what works for you, right? Like a lot of us, just want to, someone else is listening to something, so I have to do this. But yeah, just because we have a coaching program, you have a coaching program, it's for strength, but you can see where some people have tried different people, different coaches, and they finally landed on you and it finally clicked, and vice versa, right? Some people just aren't a match. And that's what I love about all of this is just find, and I preach is just go and find somebody that it works, right? Or that it does click and you can get something out of it rather than just more pushing rocks, I like to call it.
Yep. Unless you like pushing rocks. I love splitting wood, like.
I'm sure you've done a lot of that.
But physical exercise is, an important thing for me. And so it allows me to do those sorts of things. And yeah, I've split a lot of wood in my life. I'm pretty damn good at it too.
Man, no, I love it.
I'll go toe to toe with anybody out there.
Yeah, exactly. No, and man, I wasn't sure how this was going to go. And I'm very happy with like your mindset and how it all brings together, right? It's all relevant, and I just love it. And I guess what I'd like to talk about last is just, I know at the Order of Man, he asked you this at the end, and I just love the answer, but what is it to be a man to you?
What was my answer last time?
Ooh. Ooh. See, our answers change, right? So that's why.
What is it to be a man? I've said this a number of times, but it is to be a pillar of strength. To be a pillar of strength, not just physical, but physical, mental, and emotional. Okay. You need to be there. And it doesn't discredit, a woman's role, a mother's role in the family, anything like that. Because they have their own set of things that they bring to the table. And some of these are the same things as well. But is to be that figure that is that steady point, that rock for your family and your friends and those in your community. That is, and so it can come in a lot of ways, and it can be executed in a lot of ways. It can be executed through someone being a leader. It could be executed from someone just being a stoic rock that doesn't have anything, to say, and just gets in and gets the job done, that everybody can rely on. There's so many ways for that to be realized. But there's also a lot of ways for it not to be realized.
Mm-hmm. And in your experience, what would the people that you've seen that you would call a man, like your definition of a man, were they happy with themselves first? And
it's honestly, it's a lonely role. You're not going to get. There's going to be. There's not a lot of things for you to lean on, or the other way around. So the only way to be there is to be happy with yourself first.
Yeah. And it all comes down after that.
It's just like, yeah. I hate analogies, but it's, that animal pack mentality, when, that you've got the leader of the pack until he's no longer, strong enough to be it. And he's taken down and nobody feels sad for him. And that's just the way of the world. And you gotta be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And that's just what we like to teach here is find things that light you on fire, be happy in yourself. And then around you, you will create the happiness around you.
There is no, you have to find that center. You have to be that strong first for yourself before you can be for anybody else.
Yeah, I love it. And how can people find you, Chris?
Honestly, if you just type Chris Duffin in Google, there'll be pages and pages of shit. So chrisduffin.com is got a link to where you can buy my book. There, you can actually get a free Audible download of an audio copy of the book if you on there as well, and another book as well through a link I've got on there. Links to Kabuki Strength, which is my primary company, Build Fast Formula. We do performance-based supplements, and Barefoot Athletics. We do a lot of footwear type products. Actually hope to be coming out with a work boot soon that allows for better foot move, healthier foot. So that's definitely a must. My partners, my engineers, actually in North Dakota, just a couple miles south of Canada border. So that's he has that influence for sure, and it fits well with my background as well, right? Yep. But all that's on there. So chrisduffin.com, christopherduffin.com. You can go to Kabuki Strength. The main two social media platforms I interact on are Instagram, mad_scientist_Duffin. But again, you just type in Chris Duffin, I'll pop up.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn. So same thing. I could give you all the handles and whatever, but it's really easy. Whatever your favorite, type it in. You can find it on YouTube and Instagram. I don't really do much on Facebook. So, yeah.
No, amazing. And is there anything that you'd like to, final thoughts, I guess, before we close it out?
I just, I talked through my life story a little bit and some of the lessons there, but you've read the book as well. I think that people can find a lot of value, inspiration, but it's really written for the listener for things that you can put to use in your life. And so it's a great workbook, but also really easy read and incredible story that will provide you some inspiration and motivation at the same time. So I just encourage people to check it out.
Yeah, it's amazing. No, and I appreciate your time. You're a very busy man, and we will. I'll let you know when she's going to come out here, probably in 2 weeks.
All right, sounds good, Nick.
Yeah, appreciate it. So we'll sign off for now, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for listening to today's Tale from the Trench. Be sure to subscribe to the Awakened Tradesman on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Instagram and message us for a customized coaching strategy call to successfully live your oil-filled lifestyle. You can earn a fulfilled life. Check back next week to continue listening.